Do you ever have a bowl of soup, 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 a bowl of it, but the soup is too hot to eat? You have a spoon, to eat the soup with, but it's too hot. It's hot. You pick up some soup with the spoon, so there's soup in the spoon, and you put it in your mouth. I burned my tongue. When you burn, burn your tongue, because the soup was too hot. Does that ever happen to you? So you have to wait. You have to wait until the soup isn't so hot. You have to wait until the soup is not so hot, a bit cooler, and cooler, less hot. And then you can eat the soup with the spoon. If you don't wait and you try to eat the soup with the spoon, it burns. It burns your tongue. But is there something you can do so that you don't have to wait? You can skip the waiting. These are cutlery. Cutlery are the things, the objects that you hold in your hands and use to eat. Spoons, knives, and forks are cutlery. You hold them in your hands and you use them to eat. These are the three main types of cutlery that people use. People mainly 90% of the time mainly use these three main types of cutlery. To eat a soup, you can only use a spoon. If you try to use a fork to eat the soup falls through the gaps of the fork. The fork has two gaps, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you try to pick up the soup with a fork, doesn't work. The soup falls through the gaps. And with a knife, no, only a spoon. You can try to eat a soup with a knife. Tell me in the comments if it works. So you can only use a spoon to eat a soup. But when the soup's too hot, when it's really hot, you can't even use a spoon. You can't use anything. You can't use any of the three types of cutlery. How do you eat it if you don't want to wait until it cools down? It gets less hot. You can use the fourth type of cutlery. Bread. Bread is food like soup. It's also a food that you eat but it's also the fourth type of cutlery. Not many people know that there's a fourth type of cutlery, bread. Well, actually, bread is the fifth type of cutlery. Your hands are the fourth cutlery. Your hands are the fourth cutlery because you can use them to eat slices of pizza, a hot pizza, to take a slice, or a slice of cake. Who uses a spoon or a knife or a fork to eat cake or to eat pizza? You use your hands, of course. You take a slice with your hand. So the fifth type of cutlery is bread. You can take some bread, you can take a piece of bread and dip the bread into the soup, into the bowl, dip it, take it out, and eat the bread. After dipping it in the bowl, the bread is covered in soup. It's covered in soup. So it tastes good. The soup gives flavor to the bread. When the soup is too hot to eat by itself, alone, just with a spoon, when you burn your tongue, you can cover the bread with a bit of soup, and it's not so hot. It's not so hot. You can eat it straight away, immediately, without waiting, without having to wait. Do you ever do that? Do you ever dip a chunk of bread into the soup and eat it? I do it. I do it a lot. I do it often. Pretty often. So before eating the soup itself, before eating the soup with a spoon, I use some bread. And then, once the soup isn't so hot, I eat the rest of the soup, what's left, with the spoon. I eat the soup with a spoon, and I finish the soup. The bowl is empty. I've finished eating the soup. It's empty. An empty bowl. There's no soup left in the bowl. Well, not really. The inside of the bowl, inside, outside, the inside of the bowl is covered with soup. A thin, not thick, thin layer of soup on the sides of the bowl, on the inside. I try licking the bowl clean, so it's really clean. There's nothing left, no soup covering the bowl, clean. I tried to lick it, clean, but it takes a lot of time, and it's not nice to do. Your face is covered in soup if you try to lick it clean. So here comes the bread again. Another use for bread. Bread has two uses. Before using the spoon, you use the bread to dip into the soup, and after using the spoon, when there's not enough soup left, to pick it up with a spoon. You try to use the spoon, but there's too little soup to pick it up with a spoon. It doesn't work. There's too little. Before there was a lot of soup, so you could pick it up easily with a spoon. So now you don't dip the bread into the bowl. You wipe the sides of the bowl with the bread. You get the chunk, the piece of bread, and you wipe away the soup. You wipe the bowl clean. You wipe it clean. You wipe up the soup so that the bread is covered in soup. And you can eat the bread and it tastes good. The little bit of soup that was left stuck to the sides of the bowl, it's enough to give flavor to the bread. Tastes good. And you don't waste any soup. There's no soup left in the bowl. There's no soup left. No soup is wasted. No soup gets thrown out. You eat it all. You eat all the soup. Really, there are only 3 types of cutlery that I know of. Maybe there are more. Spoons, knives, and forks. But bread is pretty useful. It's pretty useful. It's got 2 uses to help you eat soup, so that you don't have to wait and you don't have to throw out any soup. You don't waste anything. It's pretty useful, bread is. Do you also do this with bread? Do you also dip bread into the soup, or use it to wipe the bowl? Or do you think it's weird? Do you think that using bread to dip or to wipe is weird? Tell me in the comments below. All right. See ya. Did you like this video? If you want, you can help me to make more videos. You can support me on Patreon. The link is in the description below.